And now our continuing series on the greatest artist of all time. At number 42, Van Morrison. In 2004, in the Rolling Stone magazine, Peter Wolf wrote, "Back in 1968, the Boston Tea Party was the premier club for rock bands. My band, The Hallucinations, composed of art school dropouts heavily drenched in R&B and Chicago blues, used the club as a rehearsal hall whenever it was available. We were in the midst of rehearsing one day, getting ready to open for the great bluesman Howlin' Wolf, when something caught my eye. I looked over to see a stranger looming in the doorway. I had no idea who he was or what he was doing there, so I went over to find out what he wanted. In a thick brogue, he asked about places to play in Boston. Once I figured out who it was, I was both excited and perplexed. Excited because I'd known and admired Van Morrison's work from his debut on the charts with his group Them. Perplexed because he seemed so lost and adrift. Despite the recent top 40 success of his song Brown Eyed Girl, he'd been having difficulty establishing his identity as a solo artist, but that couldn't account for the bleakness of his mood. As we talked, it became clear that we shared a passion for the same kind of music. Van gradually loosened up, and we made plans to get together again. He started dropping by the FM station where I used to do an all-night radio show. Soon we began to hang together, going out carousing in the night and sometimes getting into more mischief than we bargained for. He was living in a small street-level apartment in an old wooden house on Green Street in Cambridge. He, his new wife, her young son, they were flat-out broke. The place was bleak and barren, with little more than a mattress on the floor, a refrigerator, an acoustic guitar, and a reel-to-reel. They had no phone and little food. It was hard times. He was in exile, with a family to feed, no money, no band, no recording contract, and no promise of any safe or legal way out. Even the reason he moved to Boston remained a mystery. Whenever Van had to make business calls, he would walk several blocks to my place to use the phone. It seemed that my apartment also offered him a break from the near despair of his complicated and unresolved life. He'd spend endless hours going through my records. Over and over again, we would listen to what he called the gospel of Jackie Wilson, Ray Charles, Hank Williams, Billy Stewart, Elvis, and John Lee Hooker. They're the real deal, he'd say. He'd played Gene Chandler's live version of Rainbow 65 so much, I had to get a new needle for my turntable. Many nights were spent checking out different clubs, but few people knew who he was. Sometimes he would show up at my band's gigs. One night, as we started the intro to his song Gloria, I called him on stage, even though he was reluctant to sing it. When he came up, he went into a brilliant scat that rivaled King Pleasure himself. Unfortunately, the audience didn't want this unknown singer changing the familiar delivery of a song that was fast becoming a true rock classic. Eventually, Van managed to assemble a two-piece acoustic band and booked himself at a coffee house that would only be described as subterranean. It was located 3 stories below a pool parlor that was deep, damp, and dark. Egyptian motifs were painted on its yellow smoke-stained walls. The club justly deserved its name, the Catacombs. I borrowed a tape machine to capture the evening's music. What he performed that night later turned out to be the song cycle that made up the groundbreaking Astral Weeks. Though only a handful of people showed up, when Van finished playing, there was no doubt that the few present had witnessed something extraordinary. Peter Wolf concludes, "When I see Van now, I still see the same raw power and passion that he displayed more than 40 years ago in the long-forgotten Catacombs. I admire the strength and mysterious ability to transcend the despair and chaos that could so easily trapped and overwhelmed him. He's created a body of work that reflects without imitation." Our song for today is from Morrison's third solo album, Moondance. It was released in 1970. The cut is "And It Stoned Me." In 1985, Morrison said the song was a quasi-mystical experience that he had as a child. He said, "I suppose I was about 12 years old. We used to go to a place called Bali Stockart to fish. We stopped in the village on the way up to this place, and I went to this little stone house, and there was this old man there with dark, weather-beaten skin, and we asked him if he had any water. He gave us some water, which he said he'd gotten from the stream. We drank some, and everything seemed to stop for me. Time stood still. For 5 minutes, everything was really quiet, and I was in this other dimension. And that's what the song is about. It's our continuing series on the greatest artist of all time. And at number 42, Van Morrison.
Half a mile from the county fair, and the rain came pouring down. Me and Billy standing there with a silver half a crown. Hands are full of a fishing rod and the tackle on our backs. We just stood there getting wet with our backs against the fence. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Hope it don't rain all day. And it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like Jelly Roll. And it stung me. Yet it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like going home. Yet it stung me. And the rain let up and the sun came up, and we were getting dry. Almost let a pickup truck nearly pass us by. So he jumped right in the driver grin, and he dropped us up the road. Yeah, we looked at the swim, and we jumped right in, not to mention fishing poles. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Oh, the water, let it run all over me. Yeah, that stung me to my soul. Stung me just like Jelly Roll. Yeah, that stung me. Yeah, that stung me to my soul. Stung me just like going home, and it stung me. But our throats were getting dry. Then we saw the man from across the road with the sunshine in his eyes. But he left all alone in his own little home with a great big gallon jar. There were bottles too, one for me and you. And he said, hey, there you are. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Jetted myself from the mountain stream. Yet it stung me to my soul. Saw me just like Jelly Roll. Yet it stung me. Yet it stung me to my soul. Saw me just like going home. Yet it stung